Every sports league protects something. Sometimes it protects players, sometimes it protects business, and sometimes those two things collide in ways fans cannot ignore anymore. Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA and transformed television ratings.
Clark did more than just dazzle on the court this past season.
Been able to make the WNBA part of the national consciousness in a way that we've just never seen before.
Ticket sales, sponsorships, and the national conversation around women's basketball. But she also became the most physically targeted player in the league. For 2 years, almost nothing happened. Then 3 fouls triggered an official warning to Indiana, and suddenly people started asking a dangerous question. Who exactly is the league protecting? Tonight, we are breaking down the warning memo, the physical targeting, the MVP implications, and do you think the WNBA is treating Caitlin Clark fairly? Comment down below. But first, think you know your Caitlin Clark stats. Here is today's question quiz. How many technical fouls did Caitlin Clark have at the time of the warning? A1, B2, C3, D4. Comment your answer below and I'll share the right one later. The warning, what it actually says. Let us start with exactly what the warning says, and more importantly, what it does not say. The Women's National Basketball Association issued an official notice to the Indiana Fever citing player conduct concerns. The specific basis, Caitlin Clark's foul accumulation in the early portion of the 2026 season.
Look, Clark got fouled twice on that play. There were
3 incidents in the opening weeks. 1 technical foul on May 13th against the Los Angeles Sparks. A second technical foul on May 22nd. The double technical issued during the confrontation with Golden State Valkyries forward Janelle Salon right before halftime. And a flagrant 1 foul, also in the Golden State game, called on Clark for a hard screen and was upgraded after an official review. And before I go, the answer to today's quiz. How many technical fouls did Caitlin Clark have at the time of the warning? The answer is B, 2 technical fouls, plus 1 flagrant one. If you got it right, drop a check mark in the comments. 3 incidents, 3 fouls, all documented, all on the official record. Now let us put those 3 incidents into their actual context, because context is the entire story here. The first technical on May 13th against the Sparks came in the middle of a physical game where Clark was working through contact on every possession. Technical fouls are judgment calls in real time. They are issued for language, for gestures, for reactions that an official determines cross a line. 1 technical foul in the opening 2 weeks of a season is not unusual for any player competing at this level. For a player with Clark's profile, the most targeted guard in the league, playing in front of the biggest crowds the WNBA has ever seen, it barely registers as news. The double technical on May 22nd is the incident that deserves the closest examination.
And Caitlin Clark gets hit with a technical.
In the final seconds of the second quarter against Golden State, Clark and Salon had a physical confrontation after a loose ball play. The confrontation escalated verbally. Both players received technical fouls. Both. Salon threw an elbow in Clark's direction in that same sequence, an elbow that nearly landed on Clark's face and was visible on the broadcast replay. Both players received matching technical fouls. No additional action was taken against Golden State. No warning was issued to the Valkyries. The matching technicals were the end of the official response. The flagrant one is the most revealing of the 3, a hard screen in a physical game, reviewed by officials, upgraded to a flagrant one after that review. Clark acknowledged it herself in her post-game media session. She estimated approximately $1,000 in total fines across all 3 incidents. She said it plainly. She did not complain. She did not frame it as an injustice or call out the officiating publicly. She acknowledged the reality of what the night had been and moved forward. That is 3 incidents, $1,000 in estimated fines. A matter-of-fact post-game response from the player herself. And the league's response was an official warning to the franchise. Now ask yourself the question the warning memo never answers directly. If this is about player conduct and foul accumulation, why did the communication travel in one direction only? Clark picked up 3 fouls.
Kynes Allen back here for Clark. She will launch, draws the foul, and will shoot 3 free throws.
Golden State's defense spent 40 minutes grabbing, scratching, and physically pressuring her across every possession. Sophie Cunningham went live on social media after the game to show the marks on her own face. Clark walked off the floor with visible scratches running across both arms. The Salon elbow moment was on the broadcast for the entire league to see. The warning went to Indiana. The question the data raises is a simple one. What communication, if any, went to Golden State? That question brings us to the part of this story that requires going back much further than May 26th. And the pattern extends beyond individual games. Across the 2024 and 2025 seasons, Clark was the most fouled guard in the WNBA relative to her usage rate. She drew contact at an extraordinary frequency. She also received fewer foul calls per contact than any comparable guard in the league.
However, the moment that made headlines, this right here, the hard foul involving Clark and Kennedy Carter.
A discrepancy that analysts documented publicly and that the league addressed exactly 0 times in any official communication. Teams adjusted their schemes specifically around physical disruption of Clark because the film showed it was effective and the official response showed it was safe. That is not a narrative. That is the documented record of 2 seasons of basketball, a tale of 2 responses, 2 years. That is how long this has been documented. 2 full seasons of physical targeting so consistent and so visible that it became a recognized strategic approach across the entire league. Not speculation, not the impression of frustrated fans. A documented pattern that showed up in game film, in injury reports, and in the statistical record of one of the best players in the world missing 31 games in a single season.
Caitlin Clark, as you know, has missed the last 19 games with a groin injury.
Think about what 31 missed games actually means. That is more than half of a WNBA regular season calendar. 4 soft tissue injuries in 1 season. A body absorbing the accumulated cost of playing without a deterrent, without a teammate whose presence made opponents recalculate the risk of physical targeting. Grab her wrists at the catch, body her off screens, throw hard contact into her drives. The strategy was not hidden. It was run in plain sight in arenas across the country because the data showed it worked and the consequences were exactly 0. The most documented individual incident came when a landing zone violation left Clark unable to complete her shooting motion safely. It was captured on camera. It was discussed by analysts. It was replayed across every major sports platform. And the league's official response was nothing. No formal warning to the franchise involved. No public statement about protecting players in landing zones. Nothing that functioned as a deterrent to the teams running that strategy every single night. Now zoom to the Golden State game on May 22nd specifically. Clark's arms had visible scratches and marks from the physical contact she absorbed across 40 minutes of play. Cunningham photographed her own face on a social media live stream to show the damage from the same game.
To be honest, but then got injured, and so my mindset truly is to get healthy.
The Salon elbow toward Clark's head happened on national television with replay angles that made the moment unmistakable. And the official response to Golden State in that game was a matching technical foul, identical to the one Clark received. After 2 full seasons of this documented pattern, after 31 missed games, 4 soft tissue injuries, and an off-season where Clark herself had to specifically request an enforcer because she had no protection, the league had issued 0 team warnings to the franchises running the physical targeting strategy. Clark picks up 3 fouls in the first weeks of 2026. The league memo arrives at Indiana's facility, 2 years, 0 warnings in that direction, 3 fouls. Warning issued immediately. The pattern that data reveals is not comfortable to look at directly, but it is the pattern. The whistle and the warning. Before examining what that pattern actually means, it is worth being precise about what these fouls are, because technical fouls and flagrant fouls are not the same thing. And the difference matters enormously when you are trying to understand what the league's warning is actually based on. A technical foul is issued for unsportsmanlike conduct.
So that was the initial foul, and then we believe a technical was issued on Caitlin Clark. Okay.
Language, a gesture, a reaction that crosses a threshold the official determines in real time. It is by definition a subjective call. 2 officials watching the same exchange can reach completely different conclusions. Technical fouls are the most judgment-dependent calls in basketball. They are reactions to emotion, to frustration, to the human responses that happen when physical and competitive pressure builds to a certain point. A flagrant 1 foul is a different category entirely. It is defined as unnecessary contact. Contact that is more than what is needed to make a play on the ball. Clark's flagrant 1 was called on a hard screen. A screen is a stationary offensive action. It was reviewed after the initial call and upgraded. That upgrade tells you the officials looked at it again and determined the contact exceeded what was required. It was not a swinging elbow. It was not a forearm to the face. It was a screen that was ruled too hard after review. Now place those 2 categories, the technical fouls and the 1 flagrant, alongside the contact Clark absorbed in the same game. Tiffany Hayes spent 40 minutes grabbing Clark's wrists at the catch, bumping her off screens, and turning every possession into a physical contest that the officials let pass without a whistle. The broadcast documented it possession by possession. Salon elbow toward Clark's head.
This is the possession. Clark just went up to the basket. Well, she's clutching her head, but she never made contact with her head.
An elbow, not a screen, not a stationary action, resulted in a matching technical for Salon. The same severity as Clark's emotional response to being elbowed in the face. And when the totality of those incidents was reviewed at the league level, the warning went to Indiana. And think about the optics of the comparison more carefully. Clark's flagrant one was a hard screen, a stationary action on offense. The Salon elbow was a swinging motion toward the head of the league's most visible player in the final seconds of a half. Both resulted in technical fouls. Both were treated as equivalent by the officials in the moment. But only one of them, the accumulation of 3 fouls in which Clark was at various points, both the player reacting to physical pressure and the player deemed to have applied it, triggered a league-level response directed at a franchise. The other incident, the one where an opposing player took an overhead swing in Clark's direction, generated a matching technical and nothing further from the league office. Apply that standard consistently and ask yourself, if the roles were reversed, if Clark had taken an overhead swing toward an opposing player's head in the final seconds of a half, would the response have been a matching technical and nothing further? Or would the league's communication have traveled in a different direction? The question is this: when you look at the full picture of what happened in that building on May 22nd, the scratches, the elbow, the 40 minutes of physical pressure, the marks on Cunningham's face,
Is so effective down low, and she can get a lot of people in foul trouble with how physical she is.
and you see that the official league communication in response to all of it went to the team that was targeted, what does that pattern actually tell you? What the league is actually protecting? Because here is what that pattern tells you when you follow the money and the ratings and the commercial architecture that the WNBA is built around one specific player. Caitlin Clark is the most commercially important figure in the history of the Women's National Basketball Association. That is not opinion. That is the documented reality of what has happened to this league since she entered it. Television ratings that transformed the network conversation about women's basketball. Arena attendance that forced venues to expand capacity and add dates. Sponsorship deals that would not have existed without her presence in the league. The economic footprint of Caitlin Clark on the WNBA is not comparable to any other player in the organization's history. And because of that commercial reality, the league needs Clark to be a specific kind of story. Not just any story, a specific one. The story the league needs is the transcendent superstar gracefully dominating the competition. The generational talent elevating the entire league with her skill, her vision, and her crossover appeal. The player who makes casual fans tune in and new fans fall in love with the sport. That story is clean. That story is marketable. That story sells broadcast packages and jersey deals and arena sponsorships. The story the league does not need, the story that complicates the commercial narrative, is the Clark who collects flagrant fouls, talks trash to veteran defenders, and picks up technical fouls in physical games against teams running targeted defensive strategies. That version of Clark is harder to package. That version creates questions the league's marketing department does not want to be asked at sponsor presentations. Here is the uncomfortable reality that the warning memo brings into focus. The WNBA needs Clark to remain the sanitized version of herself, even in the moments when the game is anything but sanitized. They need her to absorb 40 minutes of physical pressure, get elbowed in the face before halftime, and walk out of the building with scratched arms, and still be the graceful, transcendent figure the commercial apparatus requires. The warning is not just about 3 fouls. Consider how this pattern reads to the broader audience watching this league for the first time. The WNBA has spent 2 years marketing Caitlin Clark to a mainstream audience that did not previously follow women's basketball. That audience came in expecting a sport. What they discovered was a complex institutional dynamic where the league's most marketable player was also its most physically targeted, and where the official response to that targeting was, for 2 full seasons, essentially silence. That audience is paying attention. They are not naive. And when the first official warning of any kind goes to Clark's franchise, rather than to the teams that spent 2 years targeting her, they notice the direction the communication traveled. The league's image management problem is not that Clark picked up 3 fouls. The league's image management problem is that the pattern of official responses has been visible enough for casual fans to identify without needing an analytics background to understand it. The warning is about protecting the narrative the league has invested in. It is institutional image management dressed in the language of player conduct policy. There is also the broadcast partner dimension worth examining. The networks that carry WNBA games made their agreements based on the growth story the league was projecting.
A verbal agreement has been reached on the terms for a new collective bargaining agreement, but the deal is not yet finalized. The breakthrough comes after months.
A story with Clark at its center. A Clark who is suspended for a game or whose image is complicated by a flagrant foul reputation is a different commercial proposition than the one those deals were built around. The league's interest in keeping Clark's conduct record clean is not purely about sportsmanship. It is about protecting the commercial relationships, generating more revenue than at any point in the organization's history. When you understand that financial architecture, the direction of the warning memo becomes less surprising. It is about protecting the asset the entire commercial expansion is built on, and managing her behavior rather than confronting the conditions that produced her reactions. And understanding that distinction is what makes the data pattern so important to examine honestly. The warning that changed everything, setting aside the debate about league image and public perception, the practical impact of the WNBA's warning to the Indiana Fever is impossible to ignore. The reality is simple. Technical fouls carry consequences. Under the league's disciplinary system, players who reach certain technical foul thresholds face automatic suspensions. That means every technical foul matters, especially for a player as competitive and emotionally invested as Caitlin Clark. What makes this situation particularly interesting is how it changes the strategic landscape for Indiana's opponents. Teams do not need to play dirty to benefit from the pressure surrounding Clark. They simply need to make every possession difficult. Defenders can crowd her space, challenge every cut, bump her off screens, and force her into emotionally charged situations. Clark's intensity is one of the reasons she became a generational player, but that same fire can occasionally lead to reactions that officials monitor closely. That is why the Fever's offseason roster construction suddenly looks even smarter. When Indiana signed Mycia Hines-Allen, many fans viewed the move as adding toughness and veteran leadership. Those qualities remain important, but the role has become even larger. Hines-Allen's value extends beyond points, rebounds, or defensive assignments. She often becomes the first player to step into tense situations, allowing Clark to stay focused on basketball rather than confrontation. That was visible during Indiana's physical matchup against the Golden State Valkyries.
Caitlin Clark makes a return tonight for the Indiana Fever, who welcome in the Golden State Valkyries.
As emotions rose during multiple on-court exchanges, Hines-Allen was consistently among the first players to arrive and calm the situation. Her presence helped prevent moments from escalating into something larger. Veteran wing Sophie Cunningham provides a similar benefit. Cunningham's reputation has long been built on competitiveness, physical play, and standing up for teammates. Together, Cunningham and Hines-Allen create a layer of protection around Clark that Indiana lacked during stretches of previous seasons. The result is significant. Every confrontation absorbed by a veteran teammate is one less opportunity for Clark to become involved in a situation that could lead to disciplinary consequences. Perhaps the most impressive part of this entire situation has been Clark's public response. Rather than criticizing officials or turning the warning into a media battle, she acknowledged the fouls, accepted the fines that came with them, and moved forward. That approach reflects maturity and a championship-focused mindset. Great players understand that energy spent fighting distractions is energy taken away from winning games. And winning games is exactly what Indiana appears focused on doing. With a strong start to the season, improved roster depth, and one of the league's most talented cores, the Fever look far more complete than they did a year ago. Hines-Allen's arrival has added toughness. Aaliyah Boston continues to develop into one of the WNBA's premier frontcourt players. Cunningham brings edge and experience. Clark remains the engine driving everything. The bigger question moving forward is how opponents respond. Do teams continue testing Clark physically and emotionally, knowing Indiana now has veterans ready to respond? Or do they focus entirely on basketball and try to contain one of the league's most dynamic offensive players through traditional defensive schemes? Neither option is appealing. If defenders become too physical, Indiana's veteran leaders are prepared to step in. If they give Clark more space, she has already shown the ability to control games with her scoring, passing, and deep shooting range.
Clark, this is one thing you get with Clark is great pace and great passes.
That is why this warning may ultimately have an unintended consequence. Instead of weakening Indiana, it could reinforce the importance of the roster moves the Fever made around their superstar. The MVP race is heating up. The championship conversation is growing louder. And as the season progresses, every game involving Caitlin Clark will be watched closely. The warning may have added pressure, but it has also highlighted something equally important. Indiana now has the structure, experience, and leadership to help its franchise player navigate it. The warning may have been intended to calm the situation around Caitlin Clark. Instead, it may have intensified everything, because now every fan in basketball is watching the same question unfold in real time. Is the league protecting its players, or protecting the image it built around its biggest superstar? Clark remains the center of the WNBA's entire commercial explosion, but she is also the player absorbing the most pressure, the most physicality, and now the most scrutiny. And with Misha Hines-Allen and Sophie Cunningham protecting her, Indiana is no longer backing down from any confrontation. The Fever are winning, the MVP race is heating up, and the tension is only growing. If this breakdown opened your eyes, smash that subscribe button right now. Drop your take in the comments. Do you think the WNBA is treating Caitlin Clark fairly? Hit the notification bell because this story is not over, and we will be here every single time it develops.